Outlaw Lawyer.
Welcome back into the Outlaw Lawyer. Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate, joined on set by the Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, managing partners at Whitaker & Hamer Law Firm, practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. Special guest on set with us today, Taylor Scruggs-Smith, also an attorney at Whitaker & Hamer. We're handling listener questions. If you've got questions of your own from a legal standpoint and you need some answers, I've got a phone number for you, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about. An attorney with Whitaker & Hamer will be in touch and you guys can discuss. You can also email your questions to the program, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. And we continue.
We do. So we have a listener question show today. We've had a theme. The theme has basically been divorce. So we've been talking about kind of domestic law, family law issues that come up. Again, I will remind everybody who may be listening that we are all attorneys. Morgan's not. Everybody else besides Morgan is an attorney.
He's an honorary attorney.
Are all attorneys with the law firm of Whitaker & Hamer. We are licensed to practice in North Carolina. When we answer these listener questions, we're answering them from a perspective of someone who is domiciled in North Carolina. And so we have had a question come up where we talked about the basic legal requirements for divorce. That was our first listener question. Our second listener question today was about the necessity of a separation agreement, what a separation agreement is, what it does for you. And now we're coming to our next question that kind of builds on this. And basically this listener is I'm getting divorced. My spouse is not going to agree to anything. What are my next steps? And so basically the way I take this question is like, hey, there's not going to be a separation agreement. They're not going to agree to anything in the interim. We've talked about how you have to be separated for a year. They're not going to come to terms on anything. What is this client in for? Like what comes next in this situation, Taylor?
Court.
Yeah.
Court's the big thing that comes next if you guys can't agree about anything. So with court comes having a lot of financials together and ready to go, because you're going to be filling out a lot of financial worksheets about the value of property, about what your regular expenses are if you're about to fight about alimony, because we need to know what all the expenses were on the date of marriage or like the previous years,
right,
and what they were on the date of separation. So if you guys have split and the income is now completely changed because you're not a two-income household anymore, we got to know, all right, who's really actually needs money and who is just spending maybe on luxury items they shouldn't be spending on. What's the value of those retirement accounts? But all of that starts with the attorneys getting a lot of financials.
Yeah.
A lot.
But you gotta know a lot about, the household, how it worked, who had what, who inherited what from where did these funds come from for the down payment of this house, and again, what everybody's spending money on.
Right.
And at that point, I think it's important to note it's not, in that negotiation process, our fact pattern has been very amicable to this point. It's been very pleasant. But you get to this point, it gets contentious. The court get involved. It's not he said, she said at that point. Like you said, it's hard physical documentation.
Bank statements.
Exactly.
Because you're gonna.
It's a court proceeding.
Yeah, you're gonna end up filing a complaint. Either party. You're gonna end up having somebody file an answer back that's not nice, and possibly doing counterclaims on that answer.
Yeah.
Probably got two attorneys on both sides. Hearings. A consent order may be reached because everybody's like, oh my goodness, this court process. But you can't assume that. You're assuming you're going to a hearing and a judge is gonna hear all this evidence and make a finding and make an order.
And there's a lot of this is going to be a lot of personal information that is out there kind of in a public forum, right? Because you may even get into arguing. We haven't talked about alimony and fault and no fault and that kind of thing, but you may be litigating about extramarital affairs or the way you treat your kids, or this is going to open up a public forum to judge you on a lot of behavior that at least one of the spouses may not want out there.
But hey, if it can't become to an agree, it's going to have to come out. When it comes to alimony, if there was an extramarital affair by the dependent spouse, they can't try to ask for alimony from the supporting spouse. If both parties had an affair, judge's discretion, which means we don't know.
Right. Again,
It depends on what judge you
that comes
get.
back to the relevancy of fault. We talked about how fault is completely irrelevant as to the question of divorce. But when we get into these, equitable distribution, post-separation support, fault is extremely relevant.
Extremely
There are
relevant.
several factors that are fault-based that matter a whole lot.
Yeah, equitable distribution, which is how the court splits up your property, has 16 factors that can play into an unequal distribution. Key word is that it's equitable distribution. It's not equal.
Yeah.
The court tries to make it equal, but if there's factors showing extramarital affairs, misappropriation of marital funds, you've been just spending money left and right, or you abandon the family, those things can come where the judge is like, you know what, they deserve more of what's left over because they've had to deal with more or they got more to cover.
Yeah.
When it comes to child custody, standard is the best interest of the child. So I always try to remind people it's not about whether you liked him as a husband, it's about how he is as a father.
Right.
It's not about whether you liked her as a wife, it's about how she is as a mother. So when that means who's taking the kids to school regularly, who knows their school schedule, who knows what homework they got due, who's been speaking to the teachers, the doctors, and that's a lot of information. And
Sorry, it reminded me of a stand-up bit. It's not a funny topic, but and again, like I said, I live in the real estate transactional world, the business law world, and we do a lot of risk management. We don't want things left up to a judge. We want it black and white. What happens when this happens? When this happens? When this happens? So having this type of all these very personal things that you're used to having control over, where you no longer have control over, where now a judge is gonna chime in. That I personally find that very scary.
And sometimes, though, you have to, especially if there's been any accusations of sometimes domestic violence. Those two people are never going to agree. There might even be a domestic violence protection order saying they can't even talk or see each other.
Yeah.
So sometimes there are situations where, it sucks that it's so contentious because the courtroom is not fun for people. I mean, other than us, we're lawyers, but everybody else is not fun for.
We're having a blast in there.
Yeah. But
well,
I mean,
litigation's expensive too.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's the other thing to think of. A divorce, a simple divorce may cost this. A separation agreement may cost this per hour. Litigation, we're going to trial litigation is not cheap.
And it's unpredictable.
And it's time consuming.
Exactly.
Because everybody assumes you file and you're going to be in court in a month. No, you could not be in court for 6 months to a year because there's discovery going back and forth. People have made motions about psychological evaluations. There could be several other things going on before a judge even hears the merits of the case.
Mm-hmm. All very good reasons. If you're in this situation, we hope all of our listeners are not having to worry about this kind of thing in their life. But if you're in this situation, even if it's not us, I hope you would call Whitaker and Hamer. Even if it's not us, it is 100% worth your time to consult with an attorney that you trust, an attorney that you know is knowledgeable. Don't go consult with me, Josh, the real estate attorney, about your divorce. I'm not going to be very helpful. But you can call us and consult with Taylor, who will be very helpful to you. But it's something you don't want to underestimate the importance of.
The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer, and our special guest, Taylor Scruggs-Smith, also an attorney at Whitaker and Hamer. We're going to take a short break, come back, and we'll wrap up this program. But if you've got a legal situation that you're facing and you've got questions, maybe this divorce issue is hitting home with you and you need some answers, here's the number, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Leave your contact information, briefly what the call is about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. They have offices in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay Varina, and Gastonia. We call them the Starbucks of the legal world. They're everywhere. So get in touch if you have a question. You can also email the show, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. We're back right after this.